Google's Play Store is under fire because I was explaining the difference
Mm.
between. Man, I ended up in a really stupid argument on Twitter over this one as well. People just don't seem to fundamentally not people. Some of you, like, if you understand what it is, don't take offense, you guys. But you can't deny that there are a lot of people out there who don't fundamentally understand what anti-monopoly and antitrust laws are and why they exist and how they are there for your protection as a consumer. Um, Google's response to this antitrust lawsuit that's being brought about by 36 states attorneys general is hilarious, and it kind of says everything you need to know about the new non don't be evil era Google. In a blog post responding to the lawsuit, Google says, it's strange that a group of state attorneys general chose to file a lawsuit attacking a system that provides more openness and choice than others. This complaint mimics a similarly meritless lawsuit filed by the large app developer Epic Games, which has benefited from Android's openness by distributing its Fortnite app outside of Google Play. Okay. So the fact that you're more open and provide more choice than Apple is a low bar.
It's not a major accomplishment.
That is not
No one is applauding you.
that is not the stick that you need to be measured by. So let's go through what's happening here. In a lawsuit filed in California court on Wednesday, 36 states and Washington, D.C. challenged Google's Play Store policy, forcing developers to pay a 30% commission fee on sales made in their apps. So this mirrors the Epic v. Apple, and with less notoriety, the Epic v. Google lawsuits. This is the fourth antitrust lawsuit launched against the company by U.S. government enforcers in the last year. It's about freaking time. The lawsuit alleges that Google forced anti-competitive strategies on Samsung, attempting to buy off the company to limit competition from the Samsung Galaxy App Store. So they, like turning the Galaxy Store into a white label for the Google Play Store, sharing the backend and billing while keeping a different face. Like, okay, that's not what Samsung wanted. They wanted to maintain their independence from you, which is exactly what antitrust laws are supposed to allow them to do. They also allege that Android is now open source in name only. This is on account of the fact that the Google certified version runs on over 99% of smartphones with licensed mobile OSs. So if it's a Google certified version that is not all open source, then you can't just say Android's open source. It's not that simple. And tech enthusiasts have known that for a long time. There's a big difference between AOSP and the Android that you run on your smartphone. A new Google policy, it also alleges a new Google policy will require developers of streaming services to pay Google 30% on subscriptions purchased through the app if they want to make that available, or that they be streaming only with no reference to where a user can sign up. Now, as you can imagine, Luke and I have some personal experience with what that's like for an app developer. You know what? Google and Apple should absolutely be allowed to provide a payment portal. They should absolutely be allowed to help app developers with their payment processing. But by making it 30% and by not allowing you to use anything else, they are effectively...
It's mostly the not allowing you to use anything else and not allowing you to have that one cost more. Because if we could just price adjust it, like if paying through the Google Play Store was just exactly the difference of cost to us for the payment processing, then sure, of course, why not? If you would prefer to pay that way, if it's easier for you, the cost is low enough that you don't really care, great. Doesn't matter to me. But when it costs us more and we're trying to like divvy out to creators and do all this other kind of stuff, in a lot of situations, it makes it like the Apple one made it a literal 0-cent transaction. Like we made nothing. And that just doesn't make any sense. at all, and it's so frustrating. And one of these things, like they mention a streaming only app, right? Like, oh, that doesn't sound too bad. We could have a float plane viewer app. You can't
Yeah.
subscribe through it or whatever on the store. Like, okay, I can kind of understand that, except that's not all that it is. They don't let you contact support properly through the app because they don't, and they don't allow you to have FAQs and all this other kind of stuff, or at least that's how it was on the Apple side of things. Apple's been changing things. I might not be 100% on top of it right now, but they don't let you do those things because you could include references to a way to subscribe through those things. Like if you linked to an FAQ that was on your website, or if you did anything like that, if you linked them out of that app at all to any other resources, that could potentially suggest subscribing in a different way. Even if it doesn't, that's against the rules. So it ends up being extremely anti-user and anti-consumer, to the point where as a app developer, you don't even want to do it at all, because it's just so frustrating for the user experience. And you end up getting tons of usually tweets complaining about it because they can't figure out how to officially contact your support because you're not allowed to link it properly. And that's just bonkers. I don't know.
So someone on Twitter said, well, I mean, is this really abusing consumers? Maybe if Netflix decided to dump the extra cost incurred by Google's processing fee on the consumer, it would, but I doubt they'll do that. I read this tweet and my palm just about traveled all the way through my face, grabbed my brain, went out the back of my head, and flushed my brain down the toilet. What could possibly possess you to think that Netflix will not pass this cost along to the consumer?
Yeah.
Okay. You know, and then someone else said, so what? So every store is antitrust? There's nothing unfair about what Apple or Google are doing. You can subscribe to these services via the web, then download the app and log in. All they're stopping you from doing is advertising that fact via the Play and App stores, like every shop. Okay, so the difference is that they are monopolies. Okay, they're a duopoly. Fine, whatever. You wanna sort of split hairs like that, we can. The fact that they are a monopoly means that they are not allowed to behave this way. If there was an actual competitive ecosystem for mobile devices or for app stores, remember, that's what Epic Games is arguing, that there should be a competitive ecosystem for alternate app stores, which would force Apple and Google to respond to complaints that their fees are too high and be competitive with other app stores, blah, blah, blah. That's like the whole thing. The fact that they are a monopoly is what makes the behavior bad. If they weren't a monopoly, then it would be fine. So that's why Epic is making that argument. To be clear, Epic is not some kind of noble, just doer of good deeds. They absolutely are out to make money. But they're also not wrong. The fact that they're out to make money does not make their point invalid. The lawsuit also alleges that Google requires OEMs to pre-install a suite of Google proprietary apps and make it impossible to delete or remove many of them. Also, that they provide preferential placement on devices' home screens. So in 2009, Google required pre-installation of as many as a dozen apps. By 2013, it was 24, and now it is up to 30 apps. And you know what? The reality of it is most Google apps I wouldn't actually want to remove from my phone. I mean, I love Google Maps. I love Gmail. But what if I didn't?
Yeah.
It is anti-consumer for me to not be able to remove crap I don't use from my device.
Extremely.
And you can make your product competitive. I love Google Maps, and I'm going to keep using it. That's fine. But
how would you feel if McAfee antivirus, RIP, was pre-installed on your computer and you couldn't remove it?
If
the McAfee antivirus removal tool does not exist anymore, and it is a permanent feature on your computer.
If McAfee antivirus tool is great and I want to use it anyway, then I'm perfectly happy. If it's not, because McAfee...
Even if it was the best option around, I would want the possibility to remove it for sure.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was answering as like a general consumer. So I'm looking at this from sort of like the bigger picture. As long as it's great, you don't really run into problems. But what happens is when a monopoly uses its position as a monopoly to just have their product be the default, regardless of how good or bad it is, it tends to degrade in quality. So eventually,
Yes.
even though you might not feel like this is a problem today because you love Gmail and you love Google Maps or whatever else, eventually, if Google behaves this way and stifles competition on its platform, it will be a problem. Yeah, Google's response is typical, just honestly, it's kind of evil. They're just pretending they don't even see the problem. They absolutely see the problem. Everything they did here was absolutely intentional, and they fully understand what they're doing. And I hope that the United States government finally starts doing something about antitrust. I mean, it is hilarious to look at this stuff and compare it to how Microsoft was treated over Internet Explorer. Like, what? If I'm Microsoft, I would be outraged that Google and Apple get away with what they do. What? Because they're like cooler or something? I don't know. I don't know. I don't understand it.
Yeah, everybody's just numb to it. I think the government, and we've talked about this a bunch, I think the government got gun shy after Microsoft.
Mara TV says the US won't do anything because most of their money comes from those companies. No, it doesn't. You know that there's a whole other thing where they don't pay any tax and stuff, right? they don't. Now, indirectly, sure, they employ a lot of people and create a lot of money moving around for the economy. Absolutely, for sure. But it's not like they're going to stop doing that all of a sudden because the US government steps in and starts actually enforcing their antitrust and anti-monopoly laws. Kasama says, I paid more taxes than Amazon. And they're a Twitch viewer, Scrub. So, like, it can't be a lot of money. No offense. No offense. I love our viewers on Twitch. It's just that I love the float plane and YouTube ones more. Especially float plane.
Hey.
Okay, all right. So this is funny. They pay, so Floatplane is clarifying. Well, okay, but they do pay money to politicians and pay for their campaign ads. Ah,
Hey,
yes, that. Okay, I thought you meant
true.
actually funding, like, the government.